My parents made it painfully clear they didn't want me or my kids at Thanksgiving. The moment I stepped through the door, my father didn't hesitate to humiliate me in front of everyone. "Your sister's kids shouldn't have to see a failure like you," he bellowed, his voice sharp enough to cut through the room. I clenched my jaw, took a breath, and told him flat out that if that's how he felt, then he wouldn't be seeing another cent from me. And just like that, the air in the room turned thick and heavy. My mother froze mid-scoop of mashed potatoes, Lisa shifted in her seat, and the rest of the family suddenly found their plates incredibly fascinating. Thanksgiving was supposed to be about family, about gratitude. A time to share a meal with the people who were supposed to love you no matter what. But for me, it had always been a test of patience, a yearly tradition of swallowing my pride, ignoring the blatant favoritism toward my sister, and pretending it didn't sting. Every year, I told myself to let it go. That maybe I was imagining things. That this time, it would be different. But year after year, I left the dinner table with that same familiar bitterness lingering in my mouth. This year, though? This year was different. This year was worse. I walked in with my kids, Tyler and Emma, and before I even had a chance to say hello, I felt it, the tension, thick as smoke. The moment my father's gaze landed on me, his face darkened. No greeting. No acknowledgement of my kids. Just a sneer as he glanced between Lisa's immaculately dressed, well-behaved children and mine. Then, in a voice loud enough for the whole room to hear, he spat out those words. Silence followed. The kind that sucked all the oxygen from the room. I tightened my grip on Tyler's shoulder. Emma's small fingers curled around mine. My mother busied herself with the food, pretending she hadn't heard. Lisa shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. The rest of them? They just stared at their plates, too cowardly to meet my eyes. For years, I had worked to prove myself to these people, to show them I wasn't some failure, that I had built my life with my own two hands. No handouts, no favors. Just hard work. And yet, no matter how much I achieved, in their eyes, I was still nothing. But today? Today, my kids heard it too. And I wasn't about to let them grow up thinking their father was a man who let himself be walked over. So, I let the anger settle into something colder, sharper. My voice was calm, steady as I looked my father in the eye and said, "If that's how you feel, then don't expect another dime from me." The room, already quiet, somehow became even more still. My father blinked. My mother's hands froze mid-motion. Lisa finally looked up, and for the first time, I saw it, that moment of realization. Because for years, I had been their safety net. The one who bailed Lisa out when her finances went sideways. The one who covered my parents' bills when they came up short. The one who made sure they never had to suffer the consequences of their own irresponsibility. Not anymore. "Come on," I said to my kids, my voice firm. "We're leaving." And as I walked out that door, something strange happened. For the first time in my life, I felt free. The drive home was quiet, too quiet. Tyler stared out the window, his face drawn, lost in thought. Emma clutched her stuffed rabbit, casting uncertain glances at me through the rearview mirror. She might not have fully understood what had just happened, but she knew enough to sense that something was wrong. Finally, Tyler broke the silence. "Dad?" His voice was careful, hesitant. "Why does Grandpa talk to you like that?" I exhaled slowly, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. How was I supposed to explain? That my own father had never respected me? That no matter what I did, I would never be good enough for him? "He just doesn't see things the way he should," I said finally. "But that doesn't matter. What matters is we don't have to listen to him anymore." Tyler nodded, but I could tell my answer didn't sit right with him. He was old enough to know that family was supposed to be different. That fathers weren't supposed to treat their sons like dirt. Emma's voice was softer. "Are we still going to Grandma's for Christmas?" I hesitated. I hadn't even thought that far ahead yet. Thanksgiving had been bad enough. But Christmas? That was the big one. The holiday where I spent the most, made sure the house was overflowing with gifts, not just for my kids, but for my parents, for Lisa's family. I was the one who filled their tree with presents every year. And they had the audacity to call me a loser? "Not this year, sweetheart," I said at last. "I think we'll have Christmas at home." Emma pouted, "But Tyler?" He got it. "Good," he muttered under his breath. By the time we got home, my phone was already vibrating. I glanced at the screen. "Mom!" I let it ring. A few minutes later, another call. Lisa. Then Dad. I set the phone down on the counter, ignoring them all. Whatever they had to say, I wasn't interested. Then the text started. Mom, honey, please don't take what your father said too seriously. You know how he gets. We can talk about this. Just call me back. Lisa, why would you say something like that in front of everyone? You embarrassed Dad. Dad, grow up. This is why you'll never be as successful as Lisa. You act like a child. You think you can just cut us off? Don't be stupid. I stared at the screen, my pulse drumming in my ears. Successful? Lisa? The same woman who had filed for bankruptcy twice because she couldn't handle money? The same woman whose entire lifestyle I had been propping up for years? I let out a short, bitter laugh. They actually thought I was bluffing. They had no idea. I turned my phone off, flipped it face down on the counter, and for the first time in years, I felt something other than anger. I felt relief. The first day of silence was bliss. No calls. No guilt-tripping. No demands. Just peace. I made breakfast for the kids, took them to the park, and for once, I didn't have to think about anyone else's problems. But by the second day, the cracks started to show on their end, not mine. By lunchtime, my phone was vibrating nonstop. More missed calls. More texts. And then, the kicker, a message from my father so ridiculous, I had to sit down. Dad, if you think you can just stop helping your family, you're selfish. We raised you. We gave you everything. And you can't even take care of us in return? You've really let us down, son. I scoffed. They gave me everything? The same parents who never lifted a finger when I was struggling? The same ones who watched me work 2 jobs just to keep my kids fed, while Lisa, who had never worked a day in her life, was handed everything? They expected me to keep sacrificing. To keep giving. Because in their eyes, that was my role. Not anymore. Then, Friday night, the next move came. I was helping Emma with her bedtime story when there was a knock at the door. Not a soft knock. A pounding. Tyler glanced up from his tablet. Dad? I already knew who it was. Stay here, I told him, setting the book down. I opened the door to find my mother standing there, arms crossed tight against the cold. Behind her, Lisa stood with an irritated scowl, hands on her hips. Mom, I said evenly. What are you doing here? She sighed, dramatic as ever. We need to talk. I glanced at Lisa, already glaring at me like I was some rebellious teenager. I don't think we do, I said simply. Mom's face tightened, her mouth a thin line. You made it clear how you feel about me. I let out a breath, shaking my head. Don't be ridiculous. She frowned. You're making this into something bigger than it is. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Oh, am I? Because I'm pretty sure Dad said, and I quote, your sister's children shouldn't see losers like you, right before he humiliated me in front of the whole family. Lisa rolled her eyes, arms crossed. Oh my God, he didn't mean it like that. I turned to her, eyebrows raised. Then how did he mean it? Silence. Mom shifted, rubbing her arms like she was cold. Look, your father, he's old-fashioned. You know how he is. He speaks without thinking sometimes. I nodded slowly. Right. And you? What's your excuse? Her lips pressed together, but she had no answer. Lisa sighed, all dramatic exasperation. Okay, fine, Dad was wrong. Happy? She waved a hand, already over it. But you're just making things worse by being stubborn. Just come back for Christmas. We'll talk things over then. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. Ah. So that's what this is really about. Christmas. Mom hesitated. Well, it won't feel the same if you're not there. I tilted my head, pretending to think. You mean it won't feel the same without the gifts I usually bring? Or the money I spend making sure everyone has a perfect holiday? Lisa scowled. God, you're so dramatic. This isn't about money. I arched a brow. Oh? So if I show up empty-handed, with no presents and no cash, that'll be fine? More silence. I nodded. That's what I thought. Mom let out a long breath. We just want our family together. Her voice softened, like that would change anything. That's all. I stared at her for a long moment. Did she actually believe that? Or was this just another way to pull me back in? Either way, it didn't matter. I wasn't falling for it. You had a chance to treat me like family, Mom. My voice was steady, calm. You chose not to. So now, I'm choosing not to. Lisa scoffed. Oh, come on. You're really going to cut us off forever just because Dad hurt your feelings? I looked her dead in the eye. No, Lisa. I'm cutting you off because for years, you've used me. And I let it happen. But now, I'm done. Mom's face fell. Lisa opened her mouth to argue, but I didn't give her the chance. I stepped back and shut the door. For the first time in my life, I set a boundary. And it felt good. The next morning, before I even had my first cup of coffee, my phone buzzed. Mom, I don't understand why you're doing this. We're family. We love you. We just want things to go back to normal. There it was. The guilt trip. I stared at the message for a long moment before setting my phone down. I wasn't falling for it. Normal? Normal was me working overtime to cover their bills. Normal was Lisa making reckless choices and expecting me to clean up the mess. Normal was Dad treating me like garbage while happily taking my money. No. I wasn't going back to normal. A few minutes later, another text came in. Lisa, you're being ridiculous. If you don't come to Christmas, Mom's going to be heartbroken. You're seriously okay with that? I sighed, rubbing my temples. They weren't apologizing. They weren't acknowledging what they had done. They just wanted me back in line. I picked up my phone and typed out a response. Me, I think you're confusing heartbroken with inconvenienced. Then I turned my phone off. I was done explaining myself. For the next few days, I stuck to my decision. I ignored the texts, the calls, the guilt tripping. And for the first time in years, I felt in control of my own life. Then, on Wednesday evening, the doorbell rang. I almost didn't answer it. I was tired. Tired of the drama. Tired of them showing up uninvited. But something told me this time was different. When I opened the door, my father was standing there. Not Mom. Not Lisa. Just him. He looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen before. Not anger, not disappointment. Something else. Can I come in? He asked. His voice was quieter than usual. I didn't move. Why? He sighed, glancing past me into the house. I just wanted to talk. I studied him. My whole life, my father had been a presence of authority. Someone who never questioned his own actions. Never admitted when he was wrong. But now, standing on my porch in the cold, he didn't look so sure of himself. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. 5 minutes. He walked in, looking around like he hadn't been inside my home in years. Which, to be fair, he hadn't. I led him to the kitchen, where he sat at the table. I stayed standing. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then, finally, he spoke. Your mother is worried sick. I sighed. If she's so worried, she can apologize. His jaw tightened. She's not good with words. You know that. I scoffed. She was plenty good with words when she sat there and let you humiliate me in front of everyone. His face twitched. I shouldn't have said what I said. It wasn't an apology. But it was the closest thing I'd ever get from him. Still, I crossed my arms. And? He looked up at me, hands clasped together. Look, I know you're angry. But you made your point. Cutting off your family isn't the answer. I let out a short laugh. Oh, so now I've made my point? I tilted my head. And what point is that, Dad? His eyes darkened. That you have control. That you hold all the cards. There it was. The real reason he was here. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about understanding why I was done. It was about money. I shook my head. You still don't get it, do you? His patience finally cracked. What? I'm not playing a game. I said it slowly, evenly. I'm not holding all the cards. I'm not trying to punish you. I met his gaze, unwavering. I'm just done. His jaw clenched. That's not how family works. I leaned forward, planting my hands on the table. Then explain it to me, Dad. I folded my arms, watching him. Explain it to me, then. Because from where I'm standing, family only seems to count when it benefits you. Silence. Dad exhaled sharply, his gaze shifting away. You've always been dramatic, he muttered. I straightened, my voice calm but firm. And you've always taken me for granted. He looked at me, then really looked at me, like he was seeing me for the first time. His expression wasn't angry anymore. It wasn't annoyed. It was something else. Something closer to regret. You're serious about this? He asked, quieter this time. I nodded. I am. For a second, he just stood there. Then he adjusted his jacket, stiffening his posture. Fine, he said, his tone clipped. If that's how you want it. I gave a single nod. It is. Without another word, he turned toward the door. I followed, holding it open. Just before stepping out, he hesitated. If you change your mind. I met his gaze, steady. I won't. And with that, he left. I shut the door, leaning against it with a slow exhale. I had expected to feel guilt. Maybe even doubt. But all I felt was relief. The next day, my phone was silent. No calls. No texts. For the first time in years, my family wasn't reaching out. Not to ask for money. Not to guilt-trip me. Not to drag me into their latest disaster. It felt strange. Almost too quiet. Tyler was the first to notice. So, they just gave up? He asked over breakfast. I shrugged. Maybe. Emma swung her legs under the table. Is that a good thing? I hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, sweetheart. It is. Because for once, I wasn't dreading my phone ringing. I wasn't bracing for the next crisis, the next demand, the next emotional tug-of-war. For once, I was free. 2 days passed. No calls. No texts. At first, I thought maybe they'd finally accepted it. That they understood I wasn't coming back, wasn't going to cave, wasn't going to keep playing the role they had assigned me. Then, on Saturday morning, I checked my mail. Inside was a single envelope with my parents' return address. No letter. No note. Just a bill. An overdue notice for their electricity. I stared at it for a long moment, my grip tightening. Really? This was their next move? Slipping a bill into my mailbox like that would somehow guilt me into paying it? Like I'd just handled it the way I always had? I walked back inside, set the bill down on the counter, and poured myself a cup of coffee. Then, without a second thought, I picked it up and tossed it into the trash. Because this time, it wasn't my problem. And it never would be again. By Sunday afternoon, I knew the silence wouldn't last. The doorbell rang while I was helping Emma with her puzzles. From the couch, Tyler glanced at me. Think it's them? I sighed, already knowing the answer. Stay here. When I opened the door, Mom stood on the porch, arms wrapped around herself. Her expression wasn't angry. Wasn't defensive. Just tired. I waited. Can we talk? She asked. I crossed my arms. About what? She let out a slow breath. Your father and I, we're struggling. The bills. I nodded. Yeah. I got the electric bill in the mail. Nice touch, by the way. She winced. That wasn't. I raised an eyebrow. Wasn't meant to manipulate me? She fell silent. I sighed. Mom, when are you going to understand? I'm done. I'm not fixing this for you. I'm not bailing you out. I'm not your safety net anymore. Her eyes glistened, but I wasn't falling for it. You don't mean that, she whispered. We're family, honey. I clenched my jaw. Funny how that only matters when you need something. Her face crumpled, but she didn't argue. And for the first time, I saw it, the realization settling in. The understanding that this wasn't a tantrum. Wasn't a phase. That I was serious. She nodded once, stepping back. I hope one day you'll forgive us. I studied her, my voice steady. I hope one day you'll understand why I won't. Then I closed the door. And this time, I knew. They weren't in control anymore. I was. Days passed. Then a full week. No calls. No texts. No surprise visits. For the first time in years, my life was mine. At first, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. For Dad to explode. For Lisa to show up, screaming. For Mom to send some long, emotional message begging me to reconsider. But nothing came. And one evening, as I sat on the couch watching a movie with Tyler and Emma, I realized something. I wasn't thinking about them. I wasn't stressing over what bill they might send next. Or how they'd try to manipulate me. Or whether I was being a good enough son. I was just here. With my kids. Present. Emma giggled at something on the screen, leaning against my side. Tyler smiled, completely relaxed. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt truly at peace. I had spent so much of my life chasing after their approval. Hoping for some acknowledgement. Some love that would never come. But I didn't need it anymore. I had my own family. And that was more than enough.